Linear algebra is such a fun class to take, but we need to start dissecting the main point of linear algebra, which is matrices. So let's go ahead and talk about the dimensions of a matrix, how to navigate around the matrix, and the arithmetic of a matrix. So just keep in mind that matrices are extremely powerful for solving systems of linear equations. So something like this can be turned into a matrix to look like this. And later on in linear algebra, you're going to study matrices that look something like A times X is equal to B. But before we even do that, let's go ahead and talk about how to find dimensions of a matrix. So whenever we have a matrix, we're always going to define it by the rows and its number of columns. So here's a good example. And if we want to give it dimensions, we always want to start off with the rows. You'll see that we have 2 rows. And we have 3 columns. And now we have a 2 by 3 matrix. Here's another matrix up on the right. And if we start counting the number of rows, we have 1, 2, 3 rows, 1, 2 columns. And that is a 3 by 2 matrix. It's that simple. Now let me go ahead and just write up a different matrix here. I'm just setting any type of values. And go ahead and let me know in the comments what the dimensions of this is going to be. And now that we covered the dimensions of a matrix, let's talk about how we're going to navigate around this matrix. We're going to use that same matrix that I talked about, and I labeled it A. So sometimes they're going to talk about a question where A sub 2, 1 is. Some people might confuse that and they'll say that this is A sub 21, but it's just A sub 2, 1. That's how we like to say it. And what we're looking for is the row value. That's always going to be the first term, and the second value is going to be the column term. So what we're looking for is we're looking for the value in the second row, first column. So check this out. There's my second row, and here's my first column. So the number that we're defining as A sub 2, 1 is going to be -2. Let's do a different example. How about A sub 3, 4? So we're looking for the third row, fourth column. There's my third row. And looking at the matrix, there is my fourth column. And so what that value for A sub 3, 4 is going to be 0. But what if I ask you what A sub 1, 3 would be? Go ahead and comment that below. Hopefully it's pretty simple to find the dimensions and how to navigate around a matrix. But now let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to add and subtract matrices. Focusing on just adding and subtracting matrices, one of the things that we have to keep in mind is that in order to do this, matrices need to have the same dimension. So it has to be a 2 by 2 or a 3 by 3. And as long as they have the same dimension, we are okay to add or subtract them. So here we have 2 matrices, A and B, and they're both going to be a 2 by 2. Some people like to call this a square matrix because it has the same dimensions of rows and columns. And if they were asking to add A plus B, then all we're going to do is add the corresponding values to each other. For example, if I'm looking for the value in the first term, first column, I'm going to add the 6 plus the 3. And if I continue to the first row, second column, I'm adding the 4 and the 2. And I continue that process. And if I'm subtracting them, it's going to be the same way. I'm going to go ahead and subtract the corresponding values. And that's all we need to know whenever we're adding and subtracting these matrices. Something to remember is that scalar multiplication can exist within matrices. Meaning that if I have a 2 multiplied by this matrix on the screen, then all we have to do is multiply the scalar into every single term. So it's just like the distribution property. Now, these are the main topics that we have to learn whenever it comes to linear algebra. We have to be able to understand dimensions of a matrix, how to navigate around the matrix, adding, subtracting, and of course, using scalar multiplication. Now, things get interesting whenever we're multiplying matrices, and that's exactly what we're going to cover in the next video. So make sure you like this video, follow the linear algebra playlist, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you real soon, math nerds.